Om Ajnanatimandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripadamaham vande Sri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So thank you for inviting us. Gopal Champu Prabhu is also here, Sankirtan leader at Radha Govinda Mandir. He's Harivo. My dear friend and one of the stalwarts and leaders here on the East Coast. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. The Harinam Sankirtan movement is the only export product of the spiritual world, and it is the Yuga Dharma. It is what works in this age. People are trying for yoga, for jnana, for karma, but everything is kind of difficult. Have you ever got stuck in traffic in New Jersey or around New York? Has this ever happened to you? And you realize it gets a little difficult to move, right? Things are not so easy. Even raising a family or having a company or maintaining a job or just maintaining your body is not so easy. It's kind of a hard work. So that is because we are here in the field of Durga. Durgama. What makes going difficult is Durga Devi or Maya, because this is her realm. So when we team up with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even impossible things become possible. Becomes quite easy. So Srila Prabhupada brought the Srimad Bhagavatam from India to the West on the order of his spiritual master, and he started out in New York, just very close to here. And he made it his mission to propagate this Sankirtan movement all over the world. And he knew that it can only be done if he has impact in the West, because everybody was looking towards the West, as His Holiness Bhakti Chur Maharaj often refers to that. The mantra back in the day was, the West is the best, huh? Everything that's good comes from the West. So everybody was looking that side. And so Srila Prabhupada took this message to the West, and with the help of the Westerners, he brought it and spread it all around the world. Now, we're here 50 plus years later, and we're going to colleges. Gopal Champu and myself, we were just making a tour of South and North Carolina, Virginia, New Jersey, and New York State, going to universities sharing this message. And it's quite interesting to see how the most eager, the most interested people right now, do you want to know? What's the most interested market demographic at the moment? Are you interested?
Yes.
You want to know?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You may not like it, but I'm still going to tell you. Right now it's African Americans. They're the most interested. Meditation, yoga, spirituality, vegetarianism, all these topics is very much in their viewpoint. So they're ready for the message. The question is, are we ready for them? Now we have to answer that individually and collectively. Are we ready to deal with the black man, with the white man, with the yellow man, the red man, the green man, whichever man may show up? As you may have noticed, in this great country, there's churches almost on every street corner. Have you noticed how many churches are there? Right. Every street corner, there's churches. And if you look at their table of worship, of services, unless they have a school, most likely it's 2 hours per week where the church is actually open and the rest is closed. Have you noticed? A lot of beautiful real estate, a lot of very beautiful buildings, but very little action. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda came to break open the storehouse of love of Godhead, Krishna Prema, and distribute it widely to everybody. Not only to the educated people. Kiva vipra kiva nyasi shudra kenano ye Krishna tattveta se guru hoy. Mahaprabhu said that, and he ordered Advaita and Nityananda, you give this to anybody, to everybody. Just give them this Krishna Prema, and they will appreciate it, because when you have something of quality, of substance, you're able to appreciate it. Like oftentimes I get asked by the Indian diaspora, why you as a Westerner, why you as a Swiss guy who went, grew up in a so-called nice place and went to a good school, etc. Why do you do this thing, Have you ever wondered why Westerners take to this? I mean, for you it's kind of normal, right? This is what my family does, this is my heritage, this is my culture. But why would Westerners take to this? And I usually tell them two things. Number one, I tell them rasam. You heard of rasam? Who here likes rasam? Anybody? Show of hands. Okay, you don't like rasam? No idli, sambar, dosa, rasam, no? You're more roti and kachori and puri? Rice. Okay, rice. Okay, good. And then bhakti, because devotion is really what makes things work. In every religion, in every tradition, even in relationships, unless there is bhakti, unless there is love, it's very difficult to sustain it. It's very difficult to make it endure, to make it last. Now we go into these colleges and we're speaking to people of all demographics, because the whole world is here in Jersey. Have you noticed? Have you noticed? The whole world is here. You just got to walk out the door. Everyone's there. You don't need to travel around the world and spend a lot of time, and money. You can just walk out. We were in New Brunswick and in Newark at the great universities, Rutgers. You got the whole world there. And people are ready. People are open. They're interested. Now what's interesting though, what's funny is that a lot of people from Indian background, you know what the students will tell you? My parents are Indian. I'm like, what? Excuse me? My parents are Indian. I'm American. They don't say that, but they imply that. It means by my thinking, by my culture, by my upbringing, I'm American. But my parents are Indian. So I might go along with a few of those things, but for the most part, I'm just biding my time till I can do whatever I want to do. Now, you have others who will tell you, I'm a nothing. Have you ever heard that? I'm a nothing. I always ask them, can you spell that for me? And they go N-O-T-A. I say, no, what does it mean? I know you know how to spell, but what does it mean? School is not just to memorize data, because memorization is the lowest form of learning. So if you're in education, don't bore people out of their minds by just making them memorize stuff, okay? You can say, okay, we memorize a few shlokas and a few songs and a few rituals, and it might be a good thing. But if anybody were ever to ask you, what's the meaning of what you just said or what you just did? And you would be short of words, people would think, you really don't know what you're doing here. Like you might be doing good stuff, but you don't really know what you're doing. So Srila Prabhupada said, I have only one complaint to my followers, that they do not read my books enough. Believe it or not, people will actually ask you, what does it say there in your Bhagavad-Gita? You know that banyan tree? Have you heard of the banyan tree? And the branches are down and the roots are up? And then you go like, what do you mean banyan tree? What are you talking about? And if you can't explain it to them, and this is simple, 15th chapter, just basic stuff, they will think that you really don't know your stuff, so stop wasting my time. And people go back, and I ask students, are you a scroller or are you actually reading books? You'd be surprised. More than half of the kids nowadays are just scrolling. Any one of you here likes to scroll? Huh? Scrolling. Huh? So if you actually want to learn, don't become educated in the University of YouTube. Have you heard of the University of YouTube? It's a very popular place. Many people have graduated from there. But their conclusions are not often very accurate, because you can put anything up on the internet and it doesn't really mean that it's the truth. Same like you can put stuff up on the media. I was in West Africa, many places. You can just pay $50 or $100 and you get an hour on Prime TV, national television. Pretty cool, huh? You just go to the TV station, you knock on the door, you get your money in your hand, and you walk right in. And they just stop everything and they give you an hour of time because you just brought the money. Now here it might cost you a little more. You may have to add a few or many zeros in order to get a short amount of time. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, Raja Vidyam Raja Goyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartumavyayam. That this is the king of education, the most secret of secrets. If you go to a friend's house, do you ever go to a friend's house? Do you have friends?
Yes.
Yeah? Just checking. Because there might be some aliens or some undercover agents, you know. So if you go to a friend's house, what's the first thing you ask your friend?
How are you doing?
Before that? What's the Wi-Fi password exactly? And then he will look at you and say, like, this is confidential information. I'm not sure I'm ready to share this information with you. Because that will mean that I consider you part of my inner circle, you know? Somebody gives you the Wi-Fi password, it means I trust you, you know, like we're close, okay? So in the Gita, Krishna, he gives us the secret sauce. He tells us how to actually find out about his own nature. Like, you don't reveal your own nature to just anybody. But Krishna is so kind that he gives us this inside information, who he is, how to become dear to him. And he says that this knowledge is the king of education, it is the most secret of secrets, and it is joyfully performed. Because it gives direct perception of the self. Pratyaksha. You can actually get realization. People don't care about your memorizational skills. If you want to get hired, they will ask you one thing, actually two things. Number one, what's your vision? And number two, are you team compatible? What do you want to achieve? And are you ready to play along in a team to achieve that? Skills, you can train anybody in 3 to 6 months in pretty much any skill. Am I right or am I right? Is anybody here hiring? Okay. Please say yes.
Yes.
Thank you for your audience participation. Skills you can train in a few months, but attitude, character, this stuff takes decades. That's why we gather and we discuss this thing. Because as you can see, this church is alive because they have a school. If you want your temple to be alive, you gotta have a school. At least a Sunday school. Better, a little more than that. Because that means good parents will move there to put their kids into school, and a big community will grow around them. So I went to a good school in the Swiss Alps, and I found Prabhupada's books in the library. And one of my friends explained to me a few things. Even though he didn't know that much, but just whatever little he knew, his realization, his pratyaksha was strong enough, was deep enough, that he was actually joyful, practicing bhakti. Are you joyful practicing bhakti?
Yes.
Or do you feel it's a burden? You know, now I got the job, I got the family, and I got bhakti, and I have so many other ideas. I mean, it's just too much, right? Do you ever feel like that?
No.
No, good. Just checking. Because people will take one look at you and they will say, if I start doing your Hare Krishna thing, I will become like you. Now, I'm not sure I really want that. Because if you look like a grumpy young man or a grumpy young woman, then they'll say, I don't want to end up like you. So we have to really look into the mirror and ask ourselves, would I like to become like this person? And if not, what do I have to do to change, to be my better self? So that when you walk out on the street, or you go to the store, or you go to school, or you go to your office, people come to you and ask, how can I be like you? One time in Mayapur, I walked out the front door of the school that I built, and 3 young students were there, and I asked them what they were doing. They said they had time off from school and they're just roaming around, and I asked them what is their goal, what they want to be. And all the 3 said, we want to be like you. But for now, one guy had to finish Sanskrit, 1 history and 1 science, and they said, we're probably going to have a family, but we want to be like you. I said, wow, okay. I was in Berkeley, California, in front of the university on Telegraph Avenue, distributing books, and I approached one gentleman, and he said, you already spoke to me yesterday. Don't you remember? I said, no, you're wearing a mask, I really can't tell, So he took off his mask, he had a beard, and he said, I'm a Muslim. But you're glowing. I want what you have. I said, you take this book, give any donation. He took the book. People at this stage of the game are ready to try to examine and to apply themselves. Because they have tried literally a lot of things. Some have tried too many things. And most of them are not working. And they feel exceedingly anxious. Anxiety is on the rise. Mental health issues are prominent. People are very suffering from depression. And so you could say it is a very difficult time. But actually, it is the best time to preach Krishna consciousness. They once asked Rothschild, I don't know if you heard of Rothschild, is a famous financier and investor, when is the best time to invest? And he said, when there is blood in the streets. That's the time to invest. If you have money, that's when you have to invest. When there is difficulty. So right now, everybody's feeling a little bit of a pinch. There's a pinch. Economically, socially, politically, there's a few crunches. There's a few hurdles there. But now is the best time to share Krishna consciousness with others. But who is the first person we should give Krishna consciousness to? It's ourselves. Because if I don't succeed in actually immersing myself in this teaching, in this message, yet I still would like to preach it, it really makes me inconsistent and not very effective. And some people may call me out as a hypocrite. Because they will say, if you go around and you tell people, take this, take this, take this. Have you ever seen people on school campuses or on street corners screaming and yelling at people, waving their scripture at them and calling them bad names? Have you ever witnessed this?
Yes.
And people take one look at you and they will go and say, why don't you read your own book? It seems like you need it more than I do. Because my life was okay before I met you. So, the onus or the weight, the burden of proof is really on each and every one of us. That we apply ourselves to this practice and we're actually feeling joyful, we're actually feeling happy. Krishna is very kind, he's very considerate, and he wants to see all living entities happy. Sarve sukhino bhavantu. That's why he has given us this playground of the material world. Like many of you have children. If you have children, what do you want to do? You want them to be well, to grow as healthy and, very creative and very accomplished people. So as parents, we create an environment where that growing and learning and playing process can be directed in such a way that the person can actually flourish and accomplish and become a contributing citizen of the world. In a similar way, Krishna has built the whole entire creation through Lord Brahma. And he said, okay, go play, have fun. And when you're ready, I'm here. I'm ready to engage with you. But go play a few games. And if you really want the best thing, I'm happy to play with you. That's Krishna's kindness, like a loving parent. So we have this great opportunity. We got the best product. You're in the best place because this is the happening place. This is the action place, East Coast, right next to New York. You're right in the area where everything's happening. So now the question is, supply chain management. Are we able to deliver the goods? Or do we still have some glitches, some confusion in our setup for whatever reason? So right now, I see we got a team here, and there's probably many who not yet here or are part of the team, but they're not right here in the room at the moment. So it's really about deciding on a game plan and then executing it. I have personally seen in my own life that to the degree that I applied myself to this Sankirtan mission, to that degree the empowerment was coming. And even though I was just a kid who dropped out of 9th grade, Krishna has allowed me to do a few things because I agreed to cooperate with his mission. So I humbly request all of you to please work together as a team, because it's not only very effective, it's not only very powerful, it's also very attractive. Because people are looking for community. But community doesn't just mean that, once a year there's some festival somewhere in a park, or people give out a few t-shirts or a few snacks. But community really means, what do we have in common? What is it that we have in common? Because you may say, okay, we're Deshis, right? So we're doing the Deshi thing. But then even then, some people may say, well, I'm North. No, I'm East. No, I'm West. No, I'm South. I'm Central. Oh, I'm from some other country, but I'm more Deshi than you are. So there is no unity on a material level. Unless we agree on what we have in common, there will always be too many opinions and too many ideas. So community means, what do we hold sacred? What do we have in common? Besides saying, oh, we're humans, or, we happen to be here in the great country and we might as well spend our time, wisely. I know you got busy lives. I'm not taking it for granted. I'm valuing your time. It's not like you don't have anything better to do in your life, because you're leading busy lives in your jobs and in your family life. But if you want to get something done, you got to ask a busy person. That's how you get things done. So we're simply asking you, humbly, kindly, please apply your expertise, your talent, your ingenuity to this Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then chamatkar, you will see things that are astounding, miracles, things that are transformational. Would you like to witness miracles in your life? Or would you rather just continue strolling and scrolling and watching stuff on YouTube? I would like to experience things in my own life. That's why I joined this movement. Because we are all, and that's the first teachings of the Gita, Satchidananda, we're eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Once you know these three things, you know more than any graduate from Rutgers, from NYU, from Columbia, from Yale, from Penn State. If you know who you are, you know more than 99.999% of the people on the planet. And that's money in the bank. That's something nobody can take away from you. Nobody can touch you. If you know the Bhagavad-Gita 101, just the basic teachings, you know that nobody can harm you, nobody can touch you, nobody can actually stop you if you team up with Krishna. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara, Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruvani Tirma Tirmama. If you team up with Krishna, you're on the winning team. Simple as that. So that means I got to stop playing my own games and, run my own little pawn shop, my own little daba. I have to actually agree to be part of Krishna's team. And for that I have to educate myself. I got to read the Gita, because people are going to ask you all kinds of questions. All kinds of questions. How does this thing work? How does that thing work? And then you go, duh, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, aren't you doing this for years or for decades? You know? Yeah, but you know, life is busy, you know. That's not going to do it. Right now we have over 1 million people chanting Hare Krishna, sincerely, who consider themselves followers of ISKCON. And out of the 100 initiating gurus, maybe only half of them are really actively initiating. So who's going to mentor? Who's going to guide that 1 million people? I got the answer. All of you. That's where you come into play. You see, in traditional Gurukul, one headmaster could teach thousands of students. How? Because the senior students would help teach the younger students, and the youngers would teach the youngest ones. And in this way, everybody took care of everybody, and life went on just fine. Do you remember we had a life before the internet? Does anybody remember that? Just a few? There was a life before cell phones. I was riding the train today, the subway, and everybody was glued on their screen, you know. How did we ever allow these little machines gain so much power over our lives? Have you ever wondered? So, take time to invest in yourself, in your bhakti practice. Read Prabhupada's books, chant Hare Krishna, and then share whatever you are capable of sharing with others. By giving them a book, by giving them prasadam, by giving them some time, some kind words, by hearing them out. And you will see, community will form, community will build. It's already happening. Yet because of the situation, the circumstance, I'm just making you aware of this because that's kind of where I come in. I'm a marketing guy. You will have people from all walks of life. And if we're not ready to deal with them, we will stay very small and insular. So, I humbly appeal to you to apply yourself to this practice and to share it and to be ready to be an instrument in Krishna's hands. And that is the magic. Just like Arjuna, he experienced the magic by becoming an instrument in Krishna's hands. In a similar way, Srila Prabhupada is asking us to become an instrument in Krishna's hands. It's not our potency. Krishna Shakti Vinanaya Tara Pravartam. It is Krishna's potency, not our potency. So, right now we're just coming out of this 2-year phase of where, things were a little strange and things were a little difficult. But as you have noticed, humanity is back. There's still people out there, Have you noticed? People are still walking and alive and breathing. So, it's not the end of the world. And there is unlimited opportunities to share Krishna consciousness. You got premier educational institutions just very close by. You can go to schools, you can go to door, you can set up book tables, you can do harinams. But again, the first and most difficult customer for this message is myself. Unless I convince myself, how much am I able to convince others? So we got time for a couple of questions. We got 20 minutes. Prabhu, please remind me of your name.
Well, now you put me in a difficult situation. Because what Kaviraj Goswami said in humility about himself, that whoever knows his name will lose all their credits, is true for me. But of course, if it's a great advanced devotee asks again, I guess I have to answer. My name is Murli Radhika Das.
Hare Krishna, Murli Radhika.
Hare Krishna.
I remember your smiling face, but it's been many moons.
I apologize for you having to remember my face. I'd like to, 2 Prabhupada quotes supporting what you said, then I'd like to ask a question. Well, the first is that Prabhupada wrote a letter to Rameshwar, then Rameshwar Maharaj, in which he said, the desire to distribute Krishna consciousness is a high realization. Highest realization is save yourself. that goes along with what you're saying. Just like Prabhupada also said, distribute my books, you become blissful, and read my books, you'll be convinced. So that's all. Now, my question is in terms of our giving these books to others. Sometimes in our zealousness to distribute, we may do things that, how do you say, are not so good for in book distribution. You know, in the old days, we used to wave the banner of, by hook or crook, give them a book. And, and so I was wondering if you could just speak in terms of, what we should keep in mind when we try to actually give people Krishna conscious books.
Thank you, Mulivarika Prabhu, for sharing these realizations and secrets with us, and for your very relevant question. Utsahamai, or the overenthusiasm that is quite common in any discipline, can be tempered by proper guidance, by learning how to do it from experts, from people who are trained in the art. Of course, most of us were trained in the School of Hard Knocks. Have you heard of the School of Hard Knocks? You just exhaust your options of how it doesn't work till you actually find out a way how it does work. But there's another saying that kind of contradicts that, is that you don't live long enough to make all the mistakes that are possible. So I would not recommend to anybody to go through the School of Hard Knocks. Right now, there are books, there are courses, there are videos, there are lectures, there are letters. There is a gamut of information on the art of how to share this message, and also how not to share it. Oftentimes you can also see how other groups are doing it. And as I mentioned, one example of, certain people who are waving books at people or screaming at them. And you can see that this is maybe not the most attractive or most productive way of sharing a message. Sometimes you can oversell, you just overshoot the target by being too zealous, too eager to do something. And so that's why Rupa Goswami in the Upadeshamrita, it says, Utsahan nishchayat dharyat. So utsaha, enthusiasm, but then immediately he says, nishchaya and dharyat. So he says, you have to also endeavor with confidence, and you need to be patient. So it's really the key message of Bhagavad-Gita is balance. Not too much, not too little. You have to find your balance. If you're not in balance, then where is your yoga? What kind of a yogi are you? If you're kind of erratic and trippy and too high-strung and very fanatical, then people will really not be able to appreciate it. But it's to be understood that initially there will be some mistakes, and it's part of the learning process. So for me personally speaking, having the advantage of getting the association of more experienced devotees has been a godsend. And I could learn and watch and listen, and then I applied, and many things didn't work. So I had to internalize them and apply them in my own way. Because copy-paste does not really solve all the problems. Have you noticed? You have noticed, right? Even in coding, even in tech, you think theoretically it should work, but often it doesn't. And you have to tweak it. You have to make it work somehow. And that means you have to actually understand what the goal is. So you have to have a vision of where you're going. So where are we going with this? Our only purpose of outreach is to attract Krishna's attention, to get his grace, to get his blessings. And we can only do that if people actually would like to see us again, if they would like to interact with us again. So always leave people with a good impression. That's kind of the key formula. That the next time I meet this person, will he say, hey, remember me? Ah, you're the guy who gave me that book? Yeah, that's me. Yeah, right. Not like, oh, okay, going in the other direction, you know? So, and we have both experienced these two kind of extremes in our own lives in different situations. And that means I really have to be honest. I have to be sincere. I can't just do this for, name or fame or scores. Yes, we can collect. We can do a little fundraiser right now here, and then we can send a few boxes to some hotels. And it's been done before. But if you really want to have impact, you got to get there. You got to talk to the person, and you got to be ready to answer their question. You got to be ready to help them to get into the practice so that it will actually go further. It's not good enough to just do. Of course, there's so many ways of how to distribute books. Not to discredit, one way or the other way, because we need to have books in all the motels and in all the hospitals and all the prisons and all the schools and whatnot. Yet, if you really want to have impact and build a community, I would really work in a radius of 20 to 40 minutes around where you live, because those are the people who will actually come and attend your gatherings. That's proven, scientific fact. All these studies have been made. People usually don't drive more than 7 or 8 stoplights or traffic lights to go to their nearest church. Otherwise, it's just too troublesome. That's why one temple in New Jersey won't do it. There will be many. And there will be many more to come. Now, is that an opportunity or is that a threat? Does that make us anxious or does that make us excited? That's up to you, how you deal with that, okay? For me personally, it's an opportunity. Have you ever wandered in India? You go to one lane and there's like on both sides of the street, there's marble wallas, or there's wood wallas, or there's iron wallas, and you go like, why are they all in the same street? Like, it's stupid, isn't it? Why? Because anybody who wants marble or wood or metal will go to that place. And competition enlivens the market. So don't see it as a threat, seeing as actually something good. Let me see and learn from what other people are doing. You can just walk through this property and you see some things that work and some things that don't work. Vision is the number one criteria of a leader. If you don't have vision, then you can be a follower. You can still be a team player. But somebody's got to have vision and know where they're going. Got to have a roadmap. What are we trying to accomplish here? So book distribution is not just about getting a few scores up on the board. Unless, as they say in sports, unless you develop a love for the game, you won't really sustain. Because some days it's raining, and some days it's snowing, and some days there's nobody out there on the field but you. I remember that boarding school that I told you about. I was crazy for sports. I was crazy for ice hockey. But I went to a boarding school up in the Alps on a mountain. There was no hockey ring, ice hockey, you skate on ice and you hit a puck. You heard of the idea, right? So what I did was, there was one parking lot or one abandoned basketball field that was not used, and I just put water on it and I turned it into an ice rink. And I went there to play by myself. And for me, it was perfect. I was over the moon. It was all great. Somebody may say, hey, there's no one there. It's just you, kid. I'm like, hey, I'm here. For me, it's good enough. You know that saying that if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to see it, it didn't happen? Have you ever heard of that? Huh? Now we can argue that philosophically, but that's not the point here. Some people will say nowadays, if you didn't read it on the internet, it didn't happen. Right? It wasn't on the internet, so it could not have happened. But there's so many things that are not on the internet, and they do happen. Like your spiritual practice, that you get up early and that you chant Hare Krishna. That's not on the internet Or I hope not. Yet still, it happens somehow. And you are there because you witness it. It's pratyaksha, it's your direct experience. So when you realize that something is substantial, something is actually real, Krishna is a person. I am a person. We have an eternal relationship as persons. And there's so many other people also who like to be treated as people. And they're also looking for that kind, for that conscious, for that loving relationship. You realize this is a growth industry. This is a big business opportunity because the whole world is kind of going in a different direction where people are very impersonal, very superficial, very hypocritical, and very judgmental. This is the opportunity to raise to that higher level. But that means I have to give the example and kind of overcome my own tendencies, my own lower nature. So sorry for going off on a tangent and going on a rant here. Just take out what suits you and apply it in your own lives. Book distribution is not just something we do in December or something when there is some function, some festival, and people feel a little excited and they are a little generous. But the greatest need is transcendental knowledge. Because ignorance is the enemy. It's not the communist. It's not the Muslims. It's not the Jewish bankers. It's not the Swiss bankers. It's not the Latinos that are prolific and no, it's ignorance. Ignorance is the enemy, and it can be overcome by Dibhagyan Hride Prakashito, by transcendental knowledge. By delivering the message as we have received it from the pure devotee. As we have been touched, others will be touched, and others will be empowered. And if we're not doing it, other people will come and they will do it. Why? Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Because the boss has already declared it is successful. The only question is not if or when. The only question is, am I going to be part of that success or not? That's the only question. And that everybody has to answer for themselves. Because there's many doors and people can walk out any day of the week. Because we're not forced to do this. This is a volunteer organization. We got no recourse. As Prabhupada would say, I'm an old, penniless man from India. I got no way to bribe these kids, nor to force them to do anything. But somehow they have taken a liking to me and they have started surrendering their lives to me. Why? Because they feel that I'm getting something so valuable, so substantial, so rewarding, that I'm ready to put my life on the line. That's love. That's dedication. That's community. That's what we're trying to achieve. That's what we're trying to build here. So don't think, oh yeah, we're here in a rented church, big deal. Why don't we have a big marble temple? Google started in a garage. You ever been in your garage and looked around? There's a bunch of stuff lying around, right? All the spares and seconds and thirds and whatever, didn't fit in the house, it's in the garage. That's how Google started, one of the biggest companies. And so have many of the other great ideas. Like what's Amazon's whole deal? Supply chain management. Bringing the product to the people, conquering that last mile. We got the best product. But we're not that good at actually delivering the goods on the last mile. Because we look at people and we go like, nah, 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 nah. For whatever reason, we may feel these people are not up to it. Huh? So that's why Mahaprabhu said, whether a person is a scholar or he's a beggar, whether he is a renunciate or a family man, that's not the criteria. That's not the criteria. Anybody can become transformed by this message. So this is the true United Nations. This is the real unifying potency of the Sankirtan movement. And we're here to experience this and to witness this miracle in the making. So how far things will go, How fast things will go, that depends on our collaboration and our teamwork. But Krishna has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. Have you noticed? Krishna is a trickster. He likes to keep things kind of suspenseful. He likes to keep us on our toes. Have you noticed that? How he's playing games with everybody? That is our blue boy. That is why we love Krishna. That's why we worship Krishna. There was 2 policemen in Delhi walking down the street, and one was telling the other one, you know, it's really bad. We're worshiping a God who is a thief. You know? We're policemen. You know, we're working for the law, for the government. But our God, he's stealing. And the other one said, you got it all wrong. You know, actually, he's just stealing the hearts of all living entities. He's just drawing out the love, you know. And for that, it looks like he's stealing, but actually he's just getting people's attention. So, we got time for a couple of more questions or reflections. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful class. So, normally when we distribute books, I personally hesitate on distributing small books because most of the time, you know, I don't get time to read those books. That's why, because I don't have knowledge, I don't distribute. I only distribute books which I read most of the time. So you also mentioned, right, when we distribute book, we should have the knowledge of that, what's there inside the book before we distribute. Because people might ask questions, you know, what is there in the book?
You may have a general idea, you may not have read all. Like a pharmacist, he has not tried every medicine in his shop because it's just not possible, you know, it's just too many of them. But he knows, you know, they come from good companies, it's a good product, the product works. And he's knowledgeable enough to be able to convey the message. But it's natural that we distribute mostly the books that we like, because that's the stuff that we really like. So that's what we like to share with others. But for some people, you know, giving them a Gita or giving them a Bhagavatam, maybe a little more than they ask for. Like if the person is totally brand new, it's just not his frame of mind, then giving them a small book is a more easy way for making them acquainted, rather than, like, you have a stranger on the street, you don't give him a plate of Sunday feast and, you know, and say, voila, here, 8 course, you know. You just give him a sweet ball or a cookie. And the person goes, wow, that's nice. Yeah, I like to try that. But if they say, would you like to have that full thing, it may just not fit into their mindset. But then eventually you would also get to read those books. It's you know, it'll take time. They're quite fun, the small books. They're quite exciting, and it's good to work with them. But me also in general, I just give Gita, Science of Self-Realization, you know, bigger books. But I always have a few because some people their capacity is not so big. You also, when I give books as a freebie, you know, as a gratuity for people who are interested, but they may not be inclined to give, or they may not be ready. So I just give them a small thing. I don't want to drop a Gita on them, and then they're like, whoa, 1,000-page book, you know, wow. And it seems like a little overkill, like a little too much. So it's good that we have different calibers for different situations.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. Other questions? And work in teams, build your teams. Like at ISV, kind of Silicon Valley, we got similar demographic. There's 0 resident devotees. There is about 300 or 400 families who are associated with the Mountain View Temple in California. And the youth have their own team. The ladies have their team. The older folks have their team. There's a corporate team. There is a bunch of bachelors who go out. So, you know, it's a multi-pronged. There's many, we have unlimited prospect. There is no lack of opportunity. So, but doing it alone is a little difficult. Not everybody is that driven. Like I was driven for hockey to create my environment. I was also out playing other sports just by myself. Majority is more excited to work with others. So find yourself a partner or a group and go out with them regularly, and you will see that there is strength in unity. You know the example of Aesop's fable that you can break one stick, but the bundle of stick is not breakable. So you put a few, even little guys together, they will become very strong. That's a proven fact. Other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Shri. So first I would like to just say that it's because of devotees like yourself who are so dedicated in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books that our movement is growing, and it's an inspiration, just a 30-minute talk, and it's so inspiring and reminding us what our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is all about. It's all about preaching, which would be through books or through prasadam or whatever qualities Krishna has given to all of us. We know the saying that you can bring the horse to the pond, but you cannot make it drink. So, like today's class is something like bring the horse to the pond, and we can inspire devotees. But how do you go to the next level? Because
yes,
everybody knows that, yes, I have to do something.
Yes, thank you. That's my last point, and I will leave you with that. I tell students at the university, if you figure out the why, the how will become very easy. Work on the why. But if the why is not clear, the how is superfluous, it's meaningless, because you're barking up the wrong tree. You're doing the wrong homework. So as a homework for this weekend or next week, write down the 108 reasons why you want to share Krishna consciousness. Maybe a little more than you have asked for, so maybe come up with 5 or at least 3 reasons why you would like to share this message with others. And please, your reasons. What gets you going? What gets you out of bed? Like, why are you here? No one's paying you to be here. Nobody forced you to be here. It's your own choice. You must be getting something out of it. Otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? So in a similar way, why should I share this message? I might say, hey, I got my guru, I got my thakur, I'm initiated. Why would I want to do this? Unless I have really a true purpose. One time Srila Prabhupada had all the GBC men in Mayapur, and he asked them, are you convinced? Are you convinced? And he asked them like 3 times. And everybody was like, your guru is there. You can't just fake it. You can't just lie to him. So he said, because if you're not convinced, how are you going to convince anybody else? That's why we're reading every day. That's why we're chanting japa. That's why we're doing these things. Not just to tick off the box and to say, yeah, done. But because if I'm not convinced, I'll not have impact. I'm just going to be shooting blanks. You ever seen in the movies when they shoot blanks, It's not very really potent. So write down, what are your reasons why you would like to share this message? What has really made a difference in your life? Those things that are dear and near and precious to me, it becomes very natural, it becomes very organic, it becomes very spontaneous to share that with others. Because I like it, it made a difference in my life. So work with that. Because that susukam kartumavyayam does not work so well if it's fear-based, or it's, coerced, or it's just a must. Okay, they say we must do this, so we're gonna do this. All right, okay, boss has said, yes, boss, Work with your desire. And of course, initially, there may be some resistance because it's a new thing. We might be culturally a little more timid, shy, which is a virtue, which is kind of unusual in this country. And you may think like, it's not really considered such a great thing. But you will see that you can use any quality and any talent in your favor if you know how to apply yourself. It's just a matter of figuring out a way how to do it. And that's why I'm talking to you, because you figured your way to be here. You figured out your way to be here in New Jersey. So going out and distributing a few books, that's really an easy job, I tell you. But being here and doing all that you do, that was a difficult job. Everybody wants these books. Everybody wants the knowledge. People are looking. They're looking for beauty. Have you ever noticed how much people pay for beauty? Some of you know. People are looking for power. They're looking for wealth. I guarantee you that. They're out there 24/7 chasing it, clogging up the freeways. They're looking for knowledge. They're looking for fame. They're ready to die to be famous. Very few are looking for renunciation. But have you ever noticed when someone's really detached, it's really powerful. That's why Krishna's got all the girls. Because he doesn't need anybody. Because he is complete in himself. And that's most attractive. So what are people looking for? They're looking for Krishna. Because Krishna is Bhagavan. He's the one who has all those things in fullness, in complete. And we're very fortunate that somehow, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we've gotten a clear idea about who Krishna actually is. Because if you would just go by the Google or Wikipedia version, you will get a very limited idea of who Krishna is. So thank you for being who you are and doing what you do. I don't know you, but I can see there's a lot of potential, and that's my job. I'm an analyst. I also see the faults, but we'll talk about that another time. Because right now, I see a tremendous amount of potential. You're sitting on a gold mine. It's just a matter of assembling the team and the game plan to excavate that gold mine. How long it will take you, that's up to you. Who will do it, that's up to you. But it will happen. So thank you for your trust and for allowing me the opportunity to address you and to be in your association. Thanks for raising the next team, which is already out there playing and doing all the stuff that kids do. Unless we succeed in making them feel that this is my mission, this is my culture, we have failed. And you don't want to get that F on the exam, right? Right? It's not a passing mark. That means continuity. So, again, internalizing the message by daily application, inspirational sadhana, reading at least a few verses from the Gita, from the Bhagavatam. Gita will take you 2 years if you read one verse. Bhagavatam will take you 46 years. Majority of you can still do it. Just one verse a day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Can you do one verse? Is it possible? I think it is. Otherwise, we're telling Prabhupada, hey, you know what? You wasted your time. Because no one's reading those books anyway. Why? Because I'm not reading them? No, it's possible. If you don't have time, just get up an hour earlier. There is your extra hour, free gift. And you'll realize that you get a lot more done in the day when you get up early and you read Prabhupada's books. Get off the phone, get off social media, get off all that, paranoia and fear frequency. Don't waste your time. Life is precious. Live in the real world. And you will notice that there's a lot of opportunity in Krishna consciousness. A lot. So there's so much nectar in Prabhupada's books. How many of you have read the whole Bhagavatam? It's about 6 or 7 people. How many have read Chaitanya Charitamrita? How many of you have read all the books? Okay, that's your homework. All right? Even if you read one verse, you can do it. After a while, if you like something, you want to have more of it, right? Because it's just too good to pass it up. Huh? And then all of a sudden, you're not asking, oh, when was the last time that I watched movies, or that I got on the internet, or that I did social media? It's like, I got better stuff to do in my life. I have a life, a good life. Huh? So this is the empowering process of Krishna consciousness. So thank you for being here and making this project happening. You may say, it's not our place, yada, 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 yada. Prabhupada was talking to the four walls. He was there in the Bowery. He was there in Butler, Pennsylvania. He was moving around from other people's places. But he was always doing the same thing. Getting up, translating, chanting, spreading the message. It's not about the rooms. Remember the garage example? Steve Jobs, the same guy that went to India, that later on was up in Portland in his garage. You can look it up on YouTube. Stanford Address by Steve Jobs, where he tells the students of Stanford, I was so obsessed with creating this first personal computer that I forgot to eat, I forgot to sleep, and once a week on Sunday I would walk for 7 miles to the Hare Krishna temple to eat a free meal, and then I walk back to continue on my project. People are looking. Is this the same guy I would like to work for? Yes. Huh? If you don't have a cause that you believe in, as Martin Luther King said, if you got nothing you're ready to die for, you got nothing to live for. So what gets you out of bed? What keeps you moving? Many of you are accomplished. You could retire a long time ago. So the question is, what keeps you going? It's not more zeros. What's our real purpose? And that really is defined by what is our contribution to this society, to this great country, to the world. And fortunately, we have been blessed to have this wisdom culture. And many of you are born in a very cultured environment, so you already have a lot of those samskaras and a lot of those potentials in you that are now coming out through the practice of Krishna consciousness. So let us take this opportunity and make the most of it, and you will see how you will have a voice. You will have impact. You will have meaning. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.